How's it going, everyone? I'm Sir James coming at you guys with another lightsaber video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Jedi Temple Guard lightsabers made by TXQ. As far as where I was able to obtain my hilts, mine was obtained through NSabers.com, so as always, if you are interested in the saber that I'm reviewing in today's video, or just anything NSabers tends to offer, I do have my own affiliation link and discount code in the video description down below. Now keep in mind that by using my discount code, not only do you save some credits, but I also make a few credits as well, which goes towards supporting this channel and me being able to review cool stuff like this for you guys to enjoy. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a closer look at these beautiful hilts. So here is the hilt at a distance. Now the neat thing of this is that you can use these as individual sabers, which you do have connectors for that. You could also use one of two configurations. You have the connector here with the folding hinge, which is more going to be based on how we've seen this lightsaber featured in Star Wars Rebels. And you also have another connector, which will be based on the Clone Wars variation, which we'll take a look at after this. In terms of the actual blades, this will be using a 7/8 blade. Now, if you were curious, the blades that were provided with this hilt were at 32 inches. And when inserted, there's about a 2-inch depth in here, which means that you're going to be having about 30 inches of blade exposed from the top of the emitter to the tip of the blade. The other neat little thing here about the emitter is that these little pieces here are actually clear on the windows, which means that whatever source of light that you have coming out of here, you'll be able to see the light source on the sides here, and of course through the main blade itself. In fact, if you ever look at the Jedi Temple Guard screenshots from the Clone Wars, you'll notice that on their hilts that they seem to have more of a green tone that came through here than, of course, with their blades being yellow. Now, even though the colorization of this hilt is not themed for the Clone Wars version, this is more Rebel based, but it's cool that you kind of have two different options in the box, in my opinion. Now, I am using the Prophy configuration for this if you were curious, which means that you might be able to use FET 263's saber profiles to customize the blade, and you might be able to have a gradient to where you could have the lower portion of your blade perhaps ignite green while the rest of the blade being yellow if you're wanting to capture that. I don't know if that's 100% doable, but that's just a little thing that I was kind of thinking about. As far as button setup, this is a one button setup on both hilts. Simple as that. This is the little toggle right here. Kind of reminds me of the switches and which was on the Temple Guard saber from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, of how this little wobbles around. Now you do also have two cover tech wheels. You have one on each hilt. And of course here is the connector. The connector is pretty much from here, from the silver lining all the way to the other silver lining piece. Now before we fold this open, you also get this connector right here. Again, if you wish to use these as individual hilts instead of being connected, you'll be just popping this back on. In fact, it comes disconnected out of the box already. And this is the other connector that's provided inside the box. This is going to be a line, this is going to be, my bad. This is going to be mostly based on how we've seen them in Star Wars, the Clone Wars, with this type of connector. Now, as you can see here, we have the grip that's pretty much covering about half the hilt. What's neat is that you have these large ventilations for sound. And when you have both hilts going at the same time, whether it's the blade styles or just music tracks, they're actually going to pop out a lot of audio, which is very neat. Now you might notice that as far as the grip section here, it looks like it's a bit off-centered. That's because this end here looks a little bit weird. Now the reason for that is this, is that when you have one hilt connected on this side, you're going to want to try to align the other side, right? Well, how do you do that? Well, on this one, the reason why this side looks a little bit weird is because there is this little adjustment ring here. And when you have the other hilt connected, you're going to loosen this or tighten, depending on what you need to do in order to get the other end to align with the part that you connected first. And that's pretty much how the adjustments work. Sometimes hilts would require timing shims and things like that, but with the connector, I didn't have any issues with that, and it worked just fine. Now, as far as why do you get two different connectors, I think I'm not 100% certain on the reasoning, but I think they wanted to give you, the collectors out there, the chance to have two different options. The connector that I'm using right now with the folding mechanism isn't really one that's meant to be used for swinging your saber around. I did try it, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So the folding mechanism here, I think this is more of your display purpose, and of course trooping around type scenario. While if you really wanted to go into it and swing your saber around, then you're going to want to use the Clone Wars connector. So for the purposes of this review, I'm going to refer to this connector as the Clone Wars version, while this one here is the Rebels version, because, well, this is how we've seen the saber in Star Wars Rebels. So here's how the connector works on this one. Pretty neat detailing. It comes out. You want to be a little bit careful trying to get these to align a little bit. Just needs a little fine-tune adjustment. But once you have it fully extended, it's just like that. Now you'll notice right off the bat, and the reason why I say that this is not meant to be used for swinging your saber around, is that there is no locking mechanism. There's no way to lock this in place, and when you're swinging, this is going to come loose and throw off your, your twirl game type scenario. And that's pretty much it. Now, as far as these cover tech wheels, if you were curious, yes, these are 100% removable. So if you find that these are getting in your way while swinging the saber with the other connector, you can remove this. In fact, I would highly encourage you to remove one cover tech wheel and just leave the other one on, so that way you can still wear it around in the parks or whatever it is that you tend to do with your sabers. I like to bring mine to the parks, so I always look for ways to easily carry it around. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look of how the lightsaber is going to look like when it's not connected to its Clone Wars or Rebels configuration. Just the hilt by itself, no connectors of any kind. And here's what you're going to see in the box times two, as there's two hilts in it. And yeah, it looks kind of weird just seeing it not connected to anything, in my opinion. Overall, it's a relatively small size in my opinion, but nothing too crazy, a little on the plain side. But it is what it is. Like I said, you still have your one button set up there. I did forget to mention that for retention screws, it's a total of two. There's one on the left and one on the right hand side to secure your blade. Now, if you wish to connect this to any of the configurations or to get access to your internal chassis, you do need to remove the silver section right here. Just like that. And then you have your chassis. As I mentioned, this is the Offee version that I'm reviewing, and since I'm reviewing this by default without adding anything, you do get over 20 lightsaber fonts in total. You do have access to your Offee board, so if you know how to configure your own saber fonts, you can go ahead and do so like that. You also have your removable battery and USB-C charging port. As far as how to reconnect this, it's quite simple. Option number one is look where the red button is, and look where the arrow is on the chassis here and slide it into place. Or option number two is with a source of lighting, look on the inside and look at the top connector. It's only going to fit in one way, and then connect it like so until it clicks into place. And then of course you can go ahead and bring your pommel and connect it like so. But like I said, if you're connecting it to any of the other configurations, then you do not need this for that. Now, speaking of connectors, here is what the hinge connector is going to look like with no hilts attached to it whatsoever. As you can see, you have the silver ends right here. And these are relatively tight, by the way, if you're kind of curious of how the hinge feels. It's tight. It's not loosey-goosey or anything like that, which is good, so you're not going to have to worry about, doing a little nutcracker treatment on your fingers there, which is neat. But yeah, that's just all it is. Now for the other one, here's how it looks with part of the connector on. Again, now we are on the Clone Wars connector right here. Now typically, you might have it to where this is aligning one way. versus the other. And then if you wish to bring the other piece over, just again, make sure to remove that bottom piece. Slide this in like so. Tighten. And luckily for me, every time I go and use this, it's always lining up perfectly. Because I do find it like this. If you end up putting these together, one little tip here is if you find it kind of not aligning in one way or another, maybe swap the sabers around and you might find it aligning it better compared to how it was before. But that's how it's going to look with this connector. And this is going to be the connector that you're going to want to use if you want to actually go out and swing your saber around, which we're going to do so in just a moment. In fact, let's go ahead and do that right now.
Tell me, is this training? My training? No. Always training. The universe is.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the outside demo of the hilts in use. I was actually pretty surprised with how well it handled with, of course, the Clone Wars connector versus the Rebels, along with the how the hilts held up entirely. There was a couple little areas I was kind of concerned with that might have proven to be an issue while doing the extensive heavy swings and fast movements and things like that, but thankfully none of those issues came to fruition, which is great. So I'm glad that I didn't have to deal with any like parts coming loose or anything like that, which is good because that's the worst case scenario. Now, obviously, as you probably already tell in the demo, that the folding mechanism, the Rebels version of the connector, is definitely more of your display type look. And honestly, I'm glad that we do have two options. You know, I'm glad that we have one that we can use to swing and have fun and go crazy with, while the other one is more of looking pretty on the shelf, something that's not going to take up a lot of space, that you can kind of fold over one another, and it's going to look great with maybe your other Temple Guard stuff or whatever it is that you have for your display, which is neat nonetheless. But like I said, there's probably one little thing that I would be a bit cautious with. It's going to be definitely the red button here. Something about these just always feel off to me. I'm always worried about that. And the worst case scenario is, hitting that the wrong way and potentially breaking. But again, I'm not going to purposely do that just to see what would happen, because that's the least case scenario, but it's just something to be more cautious with. That's about it. But since we're now back indoors, let's go ahead and take a listen to these hilts while we're inside in these conditions. So let's go ahead and turn these on right now in 3, 2, 1. As I mentioned, you do have your lighting element here. Now, a couple things to note here is that if you wish to activate any form of music that's on here, which there's a lot of music tracks by the way, while the blade is off, you're going to quickly double press the activation button. I'm not going to do it due to the purposes of YouTube copyright. It's extremely annoying. Even if I play for a fraction of the second, YouTube is going to hit me with one of those, and it's just frustrating to deal with, trust me on that. But when you activate the music at the same time, it sounds great. You got like your own little boom box on a belt type scenario. But let's go ahead and kind of cycle through the saber fonts that are included by default. Like I said, I didn't add anything. But before that, I do want to mention that there are gesture controls. You do have your twist on.
I'd put that on ice if I were you.
Fighting against the blade.
And your twist off. And that's about it. There's no like thrust move, gesture controls or anything like that, or swing on type thing. Just your twist on and twist off. So let's go ahead and cycle through. Right now we're currently on the Mandalorian saber font. So once we get back to that one, that's when we come a full circle.
Anakin. General Kenobi. Kenobi.
Which, by the way, if you are curious, Duel of Fates is the music track for that one. That sounds awesome.
Tell me, is this training? My training? No. Always training. The universe is. Angelic plasma. Dark Sith red.
When only a few of us are from the cloud, we will feel an irresistible pull towards a
Now, this one's still one of my favorites just because I like the whole pod racing effect. It's really cool to see.
Electric essence.
That one's the speeder bike. That one's a pretty fun one.
You seem a little unhinged. I think a lot about the meteor. The purity of them. Boom. Team C. Smooth grace. Smooth Jedi. Luke Skywalker. I am told it is the dark saber.
And now we're back to square one. Like I said, a lot of saber fonts on there. Now let me go ahead and kind of show you a couple things really quick, because it's a one button setup, which means that you're going to have to do things like, well, how do you change blade color? Because obviously if you're using the Jedi Temple Guard hilts, you want to be able to change the color to yellow, right? Now, one of the tips here too, by the way, if you're going to do the color change,
I'd put that on ice if I were you.
I forgot about the gesture control. One of the easier tips when you're trying to match the colors is don't have the hilts connected. Have them separate like this, and then of course insert your blade, tilt downward to activate the color changing mode, and then try to get them to align and then lock that into place. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that. First, we're going to go ahead and reinsert this bottom portion of the hilt and remove our blade plug. But overall, these are definitely a lot of fun. You guys know me, I like my double-bladed saber options and whatnot, and I always like the Temple Guard. It's kind of a shame that the Temple Guards didn't get a lot of action. I know there were some deleted scenes from Clone Wars that we could have had more with that we never got. And in Rebels, it was a little bit short-lived. It was just Kanan undergoing his Jedi trial. So as I mentioned, you have your 7/8 blade in it. There we go. 2 inches of blade depth, leaving a total of 30 inches of blade exposed with the 32-inch blades that are included. In fact, here is how the hilt looks with a blade in. And let's go ahead and change the font here.
Cal Kestis.
Alright. So as you can see, Cal Kestis, this one is blue by default, but we want to change the color. So what you're going to do is that you're going to bring it into a downward motion. Hold the activation button and then twist. Now on the Cal Kestis one, you'll notice that it had a sound effect to it. But as you can see, we are now in a color mode. You can cycle through various of different colors on here. My camera may not pick it up as nice as the human eye, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead and just go to a yellow. Let's see. Now, when you find the color that you want, you hold down the activation, you will hear a beep, and then of course, there you go. Now, of course, you have your clash effects, where if you do a clash, you press the button at the same time. Just like that. I believe for any form of force effects or quotes, it's while the saber is upwards, hold, twist.
Stim.
Oop. There you go.
Help, BD. Stim.
Cal Kestis sounds weird on that one. Stim. I don't know, I just found that so funny.
Help, BD.
Help, BD. I like Cal Kestis. It's just the way it sounds on that one, it's weird. But like I said, as you noticed, that we did change the blade color, and it's currently saved as that color, regardless. Even if I were to go all the way around back to Cal Kestis, it will still be on that same color. So neat nonetheless. And like I said, you do have your light that shines through right here, along with your main blade. So just as simple and easy as that. Let's go ahead and turn this back on. Yeah. So overall, what do I think of the Jedi Temple Guard lightsabers done by TXQ? I think the hilts are great. Like I said, I'm still not really a big fan of the flimsy red button type scenario, but that's because I've never really been a fan of how that kind of button is. I'm always worried about how that's going to last in, you know, the near future type thing, or if you just hit it the wrong way. I like the fact that you do have options provided in the box, whether you want it for your display purposes, depending on if you want to do the Clone Wars or Rebel variation. Again, with the color scheme of these hilts, these are easily more based on Star Wars Rebels than Clone Wars, and whether or not if they're going to be releasing maybe another set set of Temple Guard sabers, or we would have the other configuration is yet to be determined. I kind of hope so. It'd be kind of nice to have both as a display piece, in my opinion, especially for any Temple Guard saber fans nonetheless. But overall, like I said, these sabers are a lot of fun. I would easily highly recommend, especially if you're looking for something to add to your Jedi Temple Guard cosplaying bounds or whatever the case may be, or just your overall saber collection. Let me know what you guys think about these lightsabers in the comment section down below. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well through the same method. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and always remember, may the Force be with you.